as far as my remarks is that the December 3rd CJC meeting will be canceled. And since we have a very short day that day, I think. But anyway, we'll proceed. Next on the agenda.
Let the record reflect that Commissioner Maydoun is present. Item C, approval of the October 17, 2024 meeting minutes.
So moved.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Anyone opposed? Seeing none, meeting minutes have been approved.
Moving on to item D, number 1, under new business, an update from Corporation Counsel James W. Heath regarding the status of the criminal justice complex.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Heath, for being here.
Thank you for having us. James Heath, Wayne County Corporation Counsel.
Afternoon, Gregory Hurst, Director of Facilities Management and Planning.
So you all didn't even get a break after full board. So thank you for the opportunity to share with you this month. We've uploaded the report to the through the TCM system, but I know you haven't had a chance to see it, so I provided some draft copies for you so you can follow along. There may be some slight changes from what you have in front of you in hard copy and what actually is uploaded, but it's 99.9% the same. So just going through a couple of items, and then I'm going to turn it over to Greg. Most of the activity, as we've been talking about, has been with our facilities maintenance and planning division. Last month, we talked in some detail regarding the issues in 3 major categories that we had been having: sprinkler heads, which you all have heard about, and the program that FMP and Greg's team has been engaging in to change from one brand of detention grade sprinkler heads to another. We have not had any breaks with the new brand on any of the ones that have been changed, and the breaks in the with the brand that had initially been installed have slowed as well to some extent. And so I think some of it is just inmates and the like getting settled into the facility, sheriffs, doing a wonderful job of maintaining them. And, keep in mind, this is destructive behavior on the inmates who are there, but that has slowed down, but we are continuing with the replacement process for those sprinklers. And we have engaged with both the architect as well as general contractor, and we'll be continue to have formal discussions about what that means cost-wise and the like. But the main thing is getting the product in there that has been saving a lot of the damage that has happened. And so we're happy to report that has slowed down. We are still dealing with because you can imagine when water shoots out with such a great force, it's not only what happens in front in the cell, but water has an ability to seep back into the pipe chase behind the cell. And so, these are very complicated electrical systems that control the doors and control so many things in the ADF. And so we've had to replace some of the electrical equipment when it has gotten wet. And so Greg and his team is working with Accurate Controls, which is a company that primarily is involved with providing those boxes and that electrical equipment, and we are switching those out as needed as well. And so that's a process that is continuing to be ongoing as well. It's not just mopping up water when you get it. Other important issue we talked about detention grade glass. And so this jail does not have bars that you recall in old school facilities. And it's good because it's not a ligature point, right? You can't wrap a sheet around a piece of glass. Well, but detention grade glass does break. And so we have had several dozen breaks, primarily in high traffic areas where there are particular inmates who will take a food tray or in some instances, just beating with their foot or the like, both in the ADF as well as in the juvenile detention facility. And so Greg and his group have been diligently correcting that. The reason that's so important is because, you have to take an inmate out of a cell, put that inmate somewhere else when you're repairing that work. And just to set the explanation for you, it's not as if they're putting their hand through the glass. That cannot happen. In most cases, and Greg will probably explain this a little bit better, but he lets me sound like I know what I'm talking about for a minute. You've got glass on both sides, and in between is a polycarbonate substance. And so you can't break or breach that polycarbonate. The reason that you have the glass, though, is because it is more scratch resistant than the polycarbonate. And so the effect of smashing is kind of like a spidering effect, where it's not like it's shattering, but it's a spidering effect, which prevents you from being able to see inside of the cell, and could cause some other sorts of damage. And so that's why it's important for us to replace it. One of the things that we are looking at, and I talk in our report with kind of weighing pros and cons, is with a straight polycarbonate substance, and so leaving the glass out. The downside for that, though, is that polycarbonate is a more sensitive product with respect to clouding. You have to clean it in the proper way or it clouds up, and it's not as scratch resistant, even though you have special coatings, not as scratch resistant as the glass. And so it's, kind of 6 or 1/2 dozen. You got to kind of pick your poison in that regard, but it will not break. And so, it will not spider in such a way. And so we have had, and by now, I think maybe 3 different vendors out, and we're looking at the absolute best, most resilient sort of polycarbonate that is out there, that will help us. Keep in mind, the substance that we have is in jails and prisons all over the country. And it's the same material. It's just that in some places and some inmates, we're monitoring that and trying to figure out exactly how we can get a system that is stronger and more resistant, but at the same time allows Chief Dunlap and his deputies to be able to make sure that they've got vision inside of the cells and the like. And so with the polycarbonate that we've already replaced so far on a weekly basis, Greg is having his team, they're actually taking pictures and seeing how it changes from week to week. So we're monitoring that. And so we've got some of the best vendors in the country, literally, working with us on it. And there's going to be more that we report to you on that issue. Other things with respect to, as you recognize, we had some issues with plumbing where there were a number of toilet backups and the like. We haven't really had a problem with that in some while now. Greg and his group did a system where they had cameras looking into all the pipes and the like, and they continue to do so, making sure there's no foreign substances inside of those areas that are causing backups. And we just haven't had the same sort of plumbing issues that we experienced in the first 2-3 weeks after moving into the facility. Anything you want to add to that?
No, James, you were doing a great job. I just get to nod my head and listen.
You trained me well. Other issues, we've talked for a while about final costs and closeout and the like, and I told you, I think at our last meeting, we were going to be meeting with Bedrock to try to, begin our negotiations for some of these closeouts. We did have a meeting with them in October, and we continue to negotiate with them. The issues that we face are broadly centered in two primary areas, environmental and potential change orders. And so there are changes, as you know, as we've reported, when there were things that we thought were required under the contract, we worked with ROC and said, just do the work because we got to get finished, and we will have disputes later if there are any disputes about whether these are changes that the county required or these were issues that were required under the development agreement and the basis of design. And so there's a delta between the parties right now relative to several dozen changes, work that had already been completed, and we're in discussions with them about that. And so I would not imagine that we will have another discussion, certainly not before Thanksgiving, maybe sometime in between Thanksgiving and the end of year holiday. But that is something that is still between us. And then environmental costs, as you all know, the development agreement calls for the county to split with Rock unknown environmental costs above $500,000. Rock has submitted a claim for environmental costs that they feel are appropriate, and we are having discussions with them about the meaning of unknown environmental costs. And so that's something that we, along the same lines as the change orders, that we are discussing between the two parties. And so as we make progress in that regard, I will continue to keep you updated. You also asked last month about kind of a summary of our warranty rights under the development agreement and other agreements related to the CJC. So I provided in this report a summary of that information. And Greg's going to talk a little bit more about our general meetings with Barton Malow, who's the general contractor, on issues that we think need to be corrected or the issues that arise. But that summary will kind of give you a summary of how that process works and what the development agreement says in that regard. One of the things, and Commissioner Anderson, you and I talked, that you've seen in the newspaper is discussions that we have ongoing, and really want to commend the sheriff's office on this with respect to working with members of the defense bar who have raised some concerns related to their ability to have professional visits. And as recently as yesterday, I want to say, I know that Chief Dunlap and other top brass at the Sheriff's Department met with defense attorneys. And so our Indigent Defense Department, Indigent Defense Services Department, continues to meet with the Michigan Indigent Defense Commission, who's obviously concerned about these issues. And I'll tell you that we're making tremendous progress. We just got a preliminary report just a few days ago. And one of the things that we were happy to see is that in the month of October, we had virtually the same number of professional visits. And by professional visits, I mean attorneys, probation officers, social workers, and other folks. We had the same number of professional visits in the CJC as we had in the last full month of having visits in the old facilities, which was July. And so, inmates are meeting with the attorneys, inmates are having these professional visits. Now, the mix of these visits are different, right? Some are more remote, some of them, and attorneys are getting accustomed to that process. But when you hear, folks aren't meeting with their clients, it's just not true. The data just does not support that. And so I'd like to thank the sheriff publicly for his work with that. And we are looking at some ways of continuing to get the word out to defense attorneys about this change in how they are going to be engaging with their clients. Another point I'll make, and then I'll turn over to Greg about why that is so significant, because October, as you know, in the throes of the cyber incident, which caused wreaked havoc in some ways on the jail management system with the sheriff's office, they were able to have these visits and get those numbers comparable to July, even in the midst of that. And I think that's a tremendous point that we should congratulate the sheriff and others who are working on that on. And so the last thing that you have, the second thing is a new report that we are still toying with how we're going to present it to you every month. But Greg has talked with you in the past about the Brightly system and how we record the work orders that our stakeholders are making and issues that they're having. And so I'm going to turn it over to Greg and let him talk about that a little bit.
Sure. Thanks, James. Appreciate it. So before I go through the report, I do want to, because I don't want to forget to mention the warranty meetings. I want to give you an update on that as well. So essentially minimally twice a week, we are meeting with Barton Malow's team to go through not only the, what's what's on the docket and on the level of importance for warranty items. But we're also working to discuss some of those things that even we have to dive a little bit deeper into, looking into the full warranty process. So a couple of things going on every week to make sure that we don't miss any of these items, to ensure that the building, all of those systems are working. If there's something that is not working, we are working towards making sure we have 100% functional building. So as and I say we, the FM&P team is getting acclimated, even in the third month of full operation of the CJC. We have a lot of great things going on, but we're still focused on ensuring that the county is getting its worth from the warranty process, and that as we work through this and through the time with Barton Malow that we have, that we hit all those small points in regards to any items that we feel need to be addressed under the warranty process. So to ensure that we do that, we're meeting consistently multiple times a week to make sure that all of those items are addressed. And the good thing is to report is we're having a good partnership with Barton Malow and team and the vendors that along with the warranty process to turn over any issues in a very quick way. And so we've had a lot of success with this process. So that's good news to report. To move into what you have in front of you, I want to make sure that I give you at minimum a snapshot of kind of what we're working through from the stakeholders' point of view and what we're seeing as a team through this Brightly system. And so the first couple of slides really I left those in there. We discussed them last week. I'd say the second page just kind of talks about what Brightly is. And again, it's a system that allows us to report, and the stakeholders to report, work orders. So for the stakeholder in the building, it allows them to put in a work order and track that work order through completion. For my team, it allows us to see that work, assign that work, track it to completion, track our labor hours, going to be also tracking our cost. So it's going to be used as a mechanism for us to track labor and materials costs, which in the future is going to help us build out our budgets. And then later on, as we start to look at what our financials are here, we'll hopefully start seeing trends take place, and I'll be able to start reporting on the process of labor and materials costs as well. So second page is what is Brightly, and just gives you an idea of how we use it. The third page is similarly what is the work order system, but it's how FM&P uses it, and it gives us a couple examples of what work orders are. So again, if James's office, just as an example, if he had an office at the CJC, if he were cold, he'd be able to put in the work order system that the temperatures are uncomfortable. To where if someone experienced a clogged toilet in the bathroom, that's something that a stakeholder would be able to also put in as a work order, and we would be able to address as well. So it's from the small things to the large things. They all are being captured in this program, and it allows us to effectively manage the situation. It also allows me to hold staff accountable, right? And for our staff to hold themselves accountable as well. So I'll transition to the next page where you'll see titled CJC Work Order Detail, and I have the month of September there. So I know we're in November, but I wanted to give you a snapshot of a month where we're beyond 30 days from the full month. What you see on this page on the left side of that for that table is the data that shows the number of work orders that we received for the month of September at the CJC. We have 509 out of those almost 97%, 493 of those 509 have already been completed. There are a couple that still have parts on order and that are on hold. Just kind of want to give you an idea of how we're turning things over. So even though we have what may be considered a large number of work orders, for the size of the building, we really literally turned 4 buildings into one for the size plus the cup in the FM building. When you look at that, we do anticipate that number to slowly go down because, again, this is when the majority of people were moving in and becoming acclimated. But I wanted to make sure you had kind of a snapshot of what we see and just kind of the data that we're tracking throughout the system. It'll be consistent on the other pages as far as how the tables go. The next table, or the table to the right, really just shows the percentage of those numbers and where that sits on a graph. The following page is same data, but for the month of October. This is an example where I pulled this report last week, so we weren't fully 30 days outside of October, but 2 weeks into the following month, where I'm sure we had a lot of work orders the last week of October that were still fairly new. Even within that, out of the 498, we still had a higher completion rate of almost 87% of those work orders have been completed. And that lets you know, so again, there's a big range of the types of work orders. So some are low-hanging fruit for us, and our goal is to turn those around as quickly as possible. Some take a little bit more time, so I'm anticipating for each report, you get maybe 2 months of work, and we may move into quarters so that you can see the growth and just kind of get a little bit of history every time we give you a report. Any questions so far? Okay, I'll move on to the next page. The next page is similar dates, same data. However, it's broken out by stakeholder. So for the month of September, out of the 509, the two that stand out, actually three. The three that stand out would be the sheriff's office or the sheriff's department had 172 work orders. FM&P ourselves have found a lot of items and put in work orders. We did 166, and Circuit Court had 64 for the month of September. Again, this is when we anticipated this moving into the building. This is everyone's getting acclimated to the new building. They're moving their departments in, and when it comes to the sheriff's department, they have the largest footprint within the complex itself. And so the comparative on the next table is just a percentage. If you were to see the percentage of those stakeholder numbers of the number of work orders that they put into the system. I'll move on to the month of October on the next page, and very similar amount of numbers. However, you'll see the trend starts to go down with the number of work orders that are being put in by the different stakeholders. It's not that they don't have issues that we're going to address. It's just the number, because now we're in the second month of being acclimated. I would anticipate that when I do this for the next meeting and we have November's numbers on the report, we'll start seeing a difference in the trends, or seeing that trend kind of come down as far as the numbers go. You do see the FM&P team is increasing theirs, and that's because you've got nicks, you've got dings, lots of different things that we'll see on walkthroughs throughout. So for the quality assurance checks that we're performing on a daily, weekly, and monthly basis, just going through and walking with stakeholders and walking the buildings ourselves and with our partners, with Friedman as the property managers, we're seeing different things and putting in work orders ourselves and making sure that we don't miss items, because we want to keep this building looking beautiful. And the last piece that I'll go over is the next page here. And this, actually, James talked, he hit pretty much most of these. I wanted to give you kind of an update on some of the projects or some of the different things that we're working on within and pilots and things like that within the facilities. So parking, as of last week, Monday, we have the gate arms are functional. So now we've moved from just a sticker in the window to identify who parks where. Now we're activating cards. So people's IDs, now the lots that they're assigned to, they'll be able to use that. For the public, we do have arms, and they're not paying, they just get a ticket. That is intentional. What that allows us to do is every time that arm goes up, we get a count. And so we're going to start looking at trends of how often and how many parkers we're having for the visitors lots. Same thing with our employee lots. We do want to see the trend of where we are. Right now, we have a 1-to-1 space count that has been acclimated to departments. Who knows? In the future, we may see trends where you can oversell that, not oversell, but over-occupy. We're not at that point yet, but we do want to see what the data shows us later so that we can make formidable decisions on how our stakeholders, internal and external, use our lots.
Can I say one thing on that? This is why that's so very important. One of the biggest blind spots we had, because when we really started doing parking planning for this, we were in the middle of COVID. And so no one had any numbers about how many people are actually visiting these facilities, where are people parking, and all those sorts of things. So having that data is crucial. Then to the point that, Commissioner Kinlock, I know you might ask me about today is our planning for C3, which is a feasibility study that we're looking at. If we are in that same general area, that's going to add another strain or another aspect of parking in that area. And so we want to have good data about what we're using right now. And so I just, Greg, I thank Greg for highlighting that, but having that information, those gate arms, even for the free parking, lets us know data that is going to be helpful to us.
Thanks, James. So additional to parking, we are building shelters in our employee lots that are offsite, or I would say not CJC proper. And so that, we want to make sure we know inclement weather is coming. So we're in the process of having the concrete pads poured and building those units as well. So that'll be something additional for stakeholders, our internal stakeholders, to be able to utilize and capture. The sprinkler heads, I'm knock on wood, is kind of an inside joke we have, but to James's point, the new heads that we are using, we have not had any breaks there. We've been very strategic on where we place those. I talked about the pilot last week. I'm glad that I can report that we have completed the installation of new sprinkler heads within all of those areas. And for the most part, we haven't been experiencing anything. At least in those areas. So there still have been a few. However, it is tremendously slowed down throughout the complex.
When you say in those areas, what are you talking about? The ones that were damaged?
Yes.
All of those have been replaced now?
So every sprinkler head that was damaged has been replaced. Every glass break that has occurred has been repaired. So at this point, there are no sales, unless something happened today, offline due to one of those two repairs being needed. That is the commitment that we're giving the Sheriff's Department to our best of abilities, is to ensure that we minimize, if not eliminate, any pods or housing units and or sales being offline to the best of our ability. And so some of those things, like the glass breaks, those are one of the immediate things that were happening continuously. Same thing with the sprinkler heads. So I'm glad to say that through working with James and team, and also the Sheriff's Department and our architects, we've been able to, hopefully, I can't, I don't want to, it's like a no-hitter. I don't want to jinx it, but we've had a lot of progression, and we've seen some great signs here.
And when would you expect that all the sprinkler heads will be replaced by?
So that's a great question. We're monitoring that actively. So what I talked about the last meeting was the need to replace those in the areas that we knew were the problem areas. And to date, we've done that. And so we're going to continuously monitor and see if this picks up elsewhere. But as of right now, we're very close to closing that out and not having to replace them throughout the entire complex. I think one of the things that I want to do is be strategic on how and why we do, but also be strategic on how we use funds as well. And so if there is a problem, I do want to state we will address the issue. And if it becomes a continuous problem, we will definitely make those blanket changes. So we will always actively monitor that, and we want to definitely eliminate that issue.
As was explained earlier, that causes other problems besides just the immediate area of that broken sprinkler head. So I would think we'd want to replace them as much as possible, as quickly as possible. But that's look forward to a report down the line on how that's going.
Sure, and to give you some context there, if there was a particular cell that had a break, the additional damage water-wise that would happen is other cells, and that whole housing unit could be impacted. And if that water continuously flows, finds a way to go, use gravity, then you're absolutely right. There could be additional issues. If we're able to isolate that particular area to where we're no longer having that initial issue, then we would not hopefully have that concern again with any other area that it could potentially affect.
And to your point, one of the things, and I appreciate what Greg is saying in terms of being strategic. So for instance, we've been working with HHVS, the Sheriff's Department, and the final decision has not been made, but there's the potential that we would move particular classification of inmates on the mental health floor, for instance, to different cells. As I said, there's a number of considerations with respect to that, but and a final decision that has not been made. But when we were thinking about that, we engaged FMP and says, okay, if we were to make that move, we would want to look at replacing the glass with a polycarbonate, replacing the sprinkler heads, because that particular population is probably going to be one that might be more prone to damage those things. And so Greg's right, we're being extremely intentional with understanding the sheriff's department and their classification system. And so we work hand in glove with them to make sure we're doing the replacing in the most appropriate areas.
I have one commissioner right now, Commissioner Clementi, one question, I think.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Kind of multiple questions. One, just looking at these reports, window treatments, what exactly does that mean? Like film? Because it's like, what does that mean, window treatment? Because for
Sure.
me, it means something else, I'm sure.
So literally, it's, if you look at any of the windows in the room here, we're looking to put up window treatments very similar to these. So we're looking at shades that would block out, the majority of light if necessary, because you can imagine on some sides of the building with the glass, it's almost a whole glass wall. You have a lot of natural light that comes in. Although naturally there's some screening there that's, into the glass. However, it gets very bright and it gets warm. So we are looking throughout the building, and we're going to do that in phases. But we're looking to put window treatments very similar to what you see here.
Okay, so that was like an afterthought. That wasn't something that was thought about before.
It's not something that was required under the development. So
Okay,
that was always a county
Gotcha,
responsibility through our FF&E.
gotcha. And then in your October report, it added in Freeman Property Management. Is that like outside stuff? Like I'm thinking property management. Is that outside things that you saw?
So, so that's a great question. What's the difference there? So the property managers handle your items such as custodial services, pest control. We're essentially through their contract, parking management, the security for the parking. It's primarily those things that are non-mechanical that my department doesn't technically have trained staff to do. We handle, when I say we, FMNP handles internally your mechanical, electrical, plumbing, and safety systems, where your day-to-day cleanliness, pest control, parking, landscaping, snow removal, those things are handled by Freedman. However, Freedman is under the direction and management of the facilities managers that are employed through the county, through my department.
And then just so, being at a dinner party this weekend, I was hearing from some people that actually have been called to the CJC. Overall, a very good experience. The juror room, there were nice bright windows. There's a little backlog in checking in. I know that's not part of this, but something to think about. I'll talk to someone else about that. But the pulling of the ticket when you're parking, it was confusing because there might be, and I haven't been there to look at this, and maybe you can tell me, there might be a part where you have to, is there something to put your credit card in at these machines at all, or is it just pulling a ticket?
So there is no requirement for payment for parking. The machine that is there does have the capabilities to do that, but that is not a requirement for parking at the CJC.
Okay, that's
So
what I
there's some
thought.
additional signage that's going to be placed just so folks
Okay.
know. And so that's
So
something
that's
that
what I'm
we've heard.
hearing. So I just kind of want to report that there was some confusion about if they went to the website, which I, pulled that and checked it out, it would give you an address to the parking lots and that parking is free, but they I'm just reporting what I'm kind of hearing so that we can be better.
No, and just on that point, and so parking is free. No one pays
Right.
at this point to
Right.
park anywhere at the CJC. One of the reasons it's so important for us to have these gate arms and the like is because, as we've expressed, we have made the closest parking available to our visitors.
Mhm.
Because even though the distance between our farthest lot at the CJC where employees park is closer than the Guardian Building to First Street parking, we have shuttles that run on a continuous basis, and soon there's going to be shelters. I've heard rumors that sometimes employees like to take those closer spaces reserved for our visitors. And so that's something that is why it's so important for us to have these gate arms so that we can monitor that and control that, so we can make sure that there are ample spaces for our jurors who are, get there first thing in the morning and the like. And so that's why we're trying to kind of gather data and take some control over the issue.
Yeah, it's very congested in the morning when they're asking everyone to get there at 7:30 and finding parking.
On that
I-
point, we have a lot that if you were to go there at 10 o'clock in the morning is bone empty. Everyone wants that close lot, but we've got another free,
Yeah.
perfectly great lot that
I
is
got the-
is lonely sometimes.
Got the 7:30 picture from someone that I know that was all lined up. So in front of Lot B, there's construction going on. Can you just remind me what's like, is there, I haven't been there, so I have to go and look, but there's like, is
So,
Lot B behind some kind of?
so lot B is, what is that, north, I believe, of the, just past the, down Russell. There is construction at the freeway at 94 right now. So if you were to come down 75 and try to come up on Russell Street, that exit is blocked and there is construction in that area. So if someone were to come, and this, I think this is what we don't give directions to. If someone were to come down there and try to come off on Russell, they would be directed to the, traffic directs you to the next exit, and the detour show you how to come back. But there's construction right at that corner. And that is, it's just beyond Lot B. And so, yeah, there's construction that way. But I don't think that's our construction.
I know we have, if that. I know we have representatives from the sheriff's department and the prosecutor's office that wanted to. Oh, well, Mr. Heath, okay, sorry. Commissioner Marecki has a question.
Just have a quick question. So you're saying the shuttles are running continuously. Are you also monitoring those?
In terms of the number of trips that they take and
And
the
how many
like.
people, like if it's really worth it to do?
Yeah,
that,
so
or-
that's to that point, that's one of the issues that Friedman helps manage with the parking group that we use. And so, those, as you can imagine, those shuttles are, if the colder it gets, the more people use it. We kind of had a robust schedule for the parking shuttles. And so we continue to monitor that, and we put into the contract that we could obviously change, increase or decrease the number of routes and the timeliness of them depending on how things go. And it's just like the shuttle that we have here and in July, it's a nice day, folks are just walking, but if it's raining outside, folks want to take that shuttle. So
Okay.
we've got flexibility.
Thank you.
Thank you. I'll ask representatives of the sheriff's department. Do either of you want to speak on anything or bring us an update on that? Yeah. Does anyone have any questions for the sheriff's department? We don't, I guess. I just wanted to make sure you had an opportunity if you wanted to let us know something. And Tony from the prosecutor's office, if you'd like to join us at the table and hear what's going on with the prosecutor's office.
I have a very brief report for you from Madam Prosecutor.
You would, Tony, turn your light on and your
Please.
microphone.
Thank you.
Thank you. And your
I
name.
want to make sure I quote it correctly. First and foremost, we're grateful for all of the hard work by Greg.
Would you just announce your name and?
I'm
represent-
sorry, it's Tony Guerrero, Chief of Legislation, Grants and Community Relations for the Wayne County Prosecutor's Office. As I was saying, many thanks to the hard work from Greg and from James. As I indicated the last time I was here, we're in pretty decent shape as far as the prosecutor's office goes. Madam Prosecutor herself wanted me to report as follows: that everything in our office is moving in the right direction. Our work orders are being completed and we're adjusting to the building. The only parking issue that we had, and it may be solved by now, is the arms were not working in the east and south lots. And we had an issue with the south lot being full, but we believe that that was due to other persons not authorized to park in that lot. And I suffered the same thing. I rode around in that lot 3 or 4 circles before I was able to find a place to park. Yesterday, there was someone from, I don't know if it was from Friedman or what have you, but they were there checking the parking lots. And what remains to be seen is how well the gates will operate with our fobs to open them. But if the gates were operating or someone was there checking, we've not had any problem at all finding sufficient space. At least I can speak in the south lot. And that's really the report. So far, so good. The only thing that the staff wanted to report is we're waiting to find out when we can actually hang things on the walls. Because it is a little difficult going through, because it's I call it a vanilla building. You're walking in there and it's all white. The halls are all white. You know, you really can't tell where the heck you are or where other people's offices are. But that's really all I have to report on behalf of Madam Prosecutor.
I just wanted to ask, is that something that would be put into the system to issues with the parking and that, or is that building only?
So, and again, great question. So within the Brightly system, we do have Friedman services within that system as well. So parking, pest control, and Friedman also has a direct number that can be called. And I believe the parking company has a direct number as well, so that everyone's informed. So there are multiple ways to get that addressed.
So Tony, do you know that these issues that you're talking about with the parking have already been submitted in some way? And just waiting for them to be corrected?
Mr. Chair, to my knowledge, they have been notified. The company has been notified. And as I say, we see when they're working on the gates and when the gates are not operating, at least they've had somebody out there checking to make sure, because we have placards to put on our dashboard to show that we're authorized to park in that south lot or the east lot or what have you. So our office is satisfied that I would say facilities is being very responsive.
Good. All right. Thank you.
And just so you know, the east and south lots that Tony's talking about, those are the on-campus lots which are restricted to employees. And what we didn't want to get involved with assigning specifics, so we just gave aggregate numbers. So prosecutor, you have X number of spaces, and other end users as well. I think sheriff's office missed their opportunity to speak, so don't ask them if they want more spaces or not now. So that's we're appreciative of the end users working with us and their patience.
Okay. Yeah, are there any other questions, I should say, from commissioners? Any other commissioners have a question or comment? Okay, seeing none. If that concludes your presentation, I appreciate you being here and bringing us up to speed on what's been going on there. And when you talked about window treatments, I was just thinking about it. We had a little side conversation with Joe here about what that, but we're not, there's not windows on the prisoner side, on the outside, right? Our guests. But you're talking about the office spaces. Correct. In the courthouse, okay. Because I can imagine in the afternoon with afternoon sun, how it will heat up by the time you get till 2 o'clock in the afternoon even, and becomes probably unbearable. But anyway, that's all I have. I think I already covered that we would not have a meeting in December. But I appreciate you being here, and as anyone else doesn't have a question, we'll look for a motion to adjourn.
Oh,
Oh,
no,
oh.
not yet.
Pardon? Oh,
No, we're
oh,
not
okay.
done.
Sorry. I guess it was a little rushed. Okay, yeah. All right, sorry. Madam Clerk, next item.
We're now on item E, such as the matters as may be properly submitted before the committee. Are there any such other matters?
Any other such matters? Okay. Seeing none,
Item F, public comments.
any comments from the public that are present? If not, online or any,
There are no hands on Zoom and no emails were received.
okay, thank you. And next item,
Item G, adjournment.
all right. Entertain a motion to adjourn. Okay, we've got a motion and a second to adjourn. All those in favor? Aye. Anyone opposed? Being none, we're adjourned. See how I get.